One of Capsho's superpowers are those scarily amazing and on point episode titles that it generates. Am I right or am I right? But you may still be wondering, is it best practice? How can I launch the episode with a title optimized to its fullest? Well, that is what we are going to be talking about in this video, because episode titles are what helps your episode and your podcast get found on all of those different podcast players. So nailing this is incredibly important. Now, with a lot of optimization, there's generally two parts to it. There's the technical part of it, and there's the what I call like artistry part of it, the artsy artist part of it. When I had my first podcast, my number one goal was figuring out how I could grow it. And while learning all the different platforms and tactics was great, you know, the different social media platforms and SEO and blogging and all of the things, which by the way, we are going to be diving into in all the subsequent videos, the biggest thing that actually made a difference came down to one thing and one thing only: creating curiosity. Or in my words, what I call content honey traps. Yep, as soon as I started hooking people in so that they needed to listen to my episode, that was when I found my download numbers start to increase. So we are going to park the technical aspect of optimizing podcast titles. You know, we'll cover that in another video. And today, right now, we're going to instead dive into the artistry side of it. Because Capsho already creates an amazing title for you. In fact, we had a user, Jerry, he told us that he had an old episode. He relaunched it using a title that Capsho had generated. When he first set it live, however long ago, he had 13 downloads on it. When he relaunched it with the Capsho generated title, he got 3 times the number that he originally got, and it's something like 38 downloads. Now, granted, not huge numbers, but he was really happy because, again, you know, everything, it's all about trends, right? Wherever you start, you just want to see it going up and up and up. And that's exactly what he saw just from changing the title. So yes, Capsho already creates an amazing title for you. So what we're going to do, what we're going to go over is how you can actually make it even better if you wanted to. So let's optimize that episode title that Capsho creates for you.
So your episode title is going to be the very first thing that you see created for you once Capsho has finished processing your audio file. The great thing is that you can make all of your edits right in here, and all of your changes are automatically saved, so you don't have to worry about it. So let's get into the key changes that you want to make to an already very awesome episode title draft to make sure that your podcast episode gets maximum listens. All right, so the very first thing is you want to make sure that your title is really getting straight to the point and is clearly stating what value your audience is going to get from the episode. Because remember, people are scrolling and trying to decide which of your episodes they want to listen to, or even if they want to listen to your show at all. So it really needs to get to the point of what's in it for them. Now, Capsho is always going to try to prioritize clear over clever. It's topic driven, our episode titles. But if you feel the urge to be clever with your episode title, trust me, resist that urge, because now is not the time to give into it. So for example, this particular title that's been generated for us, for our show, this episode that Deidre interviewed Dr. Michelle Mazur on, as you can see, it says, you know, it talks about her framework, which is the 3-word rebellion. Now that's pretty cool. It creates a lot of intrigue and some curiosity, but there isn't really enough value in it for podcasters, like what's in it for them about wanting to even learn about that episode or that framework, I should say. So I would change it to something like podcast name makeover using the 3-word rebellion with Michelle Mazur. Now, again, it does bring in the intrigue of the 3-word rebellion. As you can see, I've shortened it. And it's really kind of talking about making over your podcast names. Anyone who's looking up things related to your podcast name will be able to find this and be intrigued by this particular episode. So that is tip number 1, is to make sure that your episode title clearly states what value your specific audience is going to get. Now, the second thing you want to do is make sure that your title has the keywords that your ideal audience and listeners are already searching for. Because remember, podcast directories are almost like mini search engines. And remember that whilst we do want to be keyword driven, to make sure that you don't just stuff them with keywords that are not even relevant. So the key thing that you have to remember here is to make sure you're including keywords that are specific to that episode that you are going to be talking about. So if I show you some of the other titles that we have, for example, this one is a really good one, The Truth About Content Strategy, right, with Brittany Gardner. Again, it creates a little bit of intrigue and curiosity because, as we've talked about, that is really, really key in your episode titles, but it also has the keywords content strategy. And to be even more specific, I would add something like podcast content strategy, because for our show, our ideal audience are podcasters who are looking to take their show to the next level and really grow it. So that's why you want to make sure that it's really being keyword led and you're really thinking about your ideal audience in terms of what they're looking for. So that's tip number 2. Now, the third tip is really going to be about the length of the title. So we get a lot of questions about, well, what's the ideal length that an episode title should be? So really what you want to be aiming for is a title that is no longer than 60 characters, which is roundabout with most words around 8 to 9 words. Okay, so the 60 characters is really at the point at which most podcast player apps start to cut off the title. So you want to make sure that it doesn't miss any of the really important things that you want to get across. So, which brings me to this point of saying it's not about actually cutting off words per se, but really making sure that if you do have longer, more convoluted words in your title, like this one for us, it's not about cutting off words completely to make your title shorter, but it's about looking for shorter, sharper, punchier words for the, I should say, alternatives for the words that it may have picked. So in this example here, you can see that the title is very long. It says the 3 most important marketing differentiators for high income earning podcasts. So in the episode, we do obviously talk about differentiators and high income earning podcasts, which is why Capsho has gone down that path. But when it comes to writing episode titles, we're not just looking for readability, we're looking for scannability, because people are literally scanning for some words that's really going to capture them and make them decide, help them decide, I should say, whether this is something that's going to be worth 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes of their time. Okay, so for in this example, this is definitely too long, but the words are also, and not only is the title itself long, but the words themselves are also quite long. So I would change it to something like, rather than saying, instead of cutting off words and saying the 3 most important marketing differentiators, which would make this title less relevant, I would change it to something like the 3 secret marketing tactics, maybe that top earning podcasts use. Again, as you can see, that's drastically reduced the length of the episode title, but we've also kind of subbed in punchier words that are just monosyllabic and easy to scan and easy to read while still getting across the point of the episode. So that is what I have to say about podcast episode title length. Now, the fourth thing you want to make sure is, as you can tell by now, this is very, very precious real estate. So we really want to make sure that words that are redundant and don't really do much are removed. So the first thing is make sure that you don't have your podcast name in the title. Now, this sounds really obvious with a number of episodes I see where people do include the name of the podcast in the title. And I don't know what the reasoning is, because maybe they scared that people don't remember which podcast it's for or whatever the reasoning is, but it really is redundant. Most of your episodes will be shown alongside your show. So you really want to make this about the episode. So if you are in the practice of including your podcast name, or if by freak accident Capsho has put in your podcast name in the title, make sure you remove it. Alongside the same sort of theme with the fifth tip, what you want to do is make sure that you want to continue looking for words that don't add value. A lot of the time we see the word episode in here. So people are like, episode 45, the 3 secret marketing tactics top earning podcasters use. Again, the word episode itself does not add any value because people know it's an episode, right? But it does take up really, really precious real estate. Which leads me to the episode number. Now, there's a lot of people out there who recommend not putting in the number in because, again, it's a couple of extra characters that you could use towards putting towards the title. We actually recommend that you do include the number itself. So not the word episode, but the number. So if it's 45, 57, 2, we recommend putting that in there because it's actually a really helpful and quick reference that you can use when you're more proactively promoting your podcast. So you can say, hey, you should really check out episode 11. or episode 45 is is a great one for you to listen to. So this is really great to keep it top of mind. For example, for us, we might say something like, make sure you check out episode 15 for how to monetize a small podcast audience, rather than quoting the entire podcast episode title that your audience has to try to remember. So that would be our tip, is to make sure you include the episode number itself, but not the word episode. And finally, for our sixth tip, if you have a guest on your podcast and on this particular episode, make sure you add their name onto your title. This will help you get visibility with your guest audience, anyone who's looking for them specifically, and make sure that you can be surfaced alongside their podcast as well. So Capsho will usually pull the guest name into the draft for you. As you can see, for most of ours, we do have guests, and it will pull in the person where it makes sense. But if it doesn't, for whatever reason, you want to make sure that you include it. And that's it. So these are some really quick and hopefully very helpful changes that you can make to really take your podcast episode title to the next level. All you have to do once you're happy with that is copy and paste it into your publishing platform, and you are ready to go.